Hi, welcome to Really Legal. We're part of the Really American Media Network. I'm with Michael Carter today, a trial attorney in Chicago. I'm Chip Franklin. And of course, the big news today was that Judge Cannon, after getting a brief from both parties, decided to not pick a trial date. A bit of a surprise. And what does that say about her? And what does that say about this case moving forward?
Well, she punted today, and we have to read into it. Why would she punt? To whose benefit would that inure? And we have to ask ourselves, just as regular citizens, what does that tell us about Judge Eileen Cannon? Her actions and her inactions both speak loudly.
Well, what do we know about Judge Cannon?
Well, we know that when this case first started, she appointed a special master, which some said was solely designed to slow down the prosecution. And almost everyone agrees that was uncalled for. There was no need for a special master. It was just something that the defense threw up, sort of to throw up a wall and see what sticks. And Cannon ran with it until the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals reversed her soundly on it. So her actions do show that she may want to put her thumb on the scale and tip things towards Trump. Her inactions today show that as well, because what she's likely done is left open the ability to reconvene and talk scheduling yet again in a way that if you view this from a cynical standpoint, and a what I call the right wing's or the ends justify the means. That seems to be the way the right wing thinks these days. They don't care about foundations or truth or reality. They have alternative facts. And Judge Cannon is a member of a group or associated with a group called the Federal Society, which is, in my opinion, a dangerous group of right-wing, very right-wing people. In one of the most recent meetings, there's an article on it, and the article reads, "The Federal Society isn't quite sure about democracy anymore." And the current president of the Federal Society has talked about how conservative view used to be judicial restraint, but now it's interpreting things. They want to reinterpret everything. So we know that Judge Cannon has been associated with a group that has these extreme right-wing leanings.
Yeah, as she reveals more and more about herself, it seems to me, though, it's done in a way that also protects her in some ways. In other words, like she refers to other cases and a kind of an acquiescence to Blanche, Trump's attorney, by saying, these other cases make it impossible for Trump to have an adequate defense because he's dealing with these things on different fronts. Now, granted, that's because of his own fault, but nonetheless, we know about the 60-day window. We can talk about that in a second. But what about this idea that the defense attorneys are so busy dealing with other cases, they can't possibly give this one a fair shake? And wouldn't she worry about that on appeal?
I don't know. I will tell you that I practice criminal defense. I haven't for the last 15 years or so, but I practice criminal defense at various levels. And I've never had a judge care once about my client's other criminal cases or trials. Not once. It doesn't happen.
But he wasn't president of, or she wasn't president of the United States at one point.
Absolutely, that's absolutely right. And arguably, I believe that shouldn't matter. It shouldn't matter who you are. You should be treated equally. Now we know that's a fiction, but it should be reality. And the fact that this person, this defendant, this criminal defendant, has done so many acts over years, that shouldn't really matter. What should matter is looking at the case. Is this a complex case? Now, the government will call a number of witnesses, but this isn't a complex case. This isn't a whodunit. No one entering that room, the courtroom, will have a question about who did this. And it's not a question about whether somebody inadvertently mishandled documents. The case Judge Cannon presides over is a simple question. When asked, or when being demanded by the government to hand back documents This criminal defendant, Trump, decided he wouldn't, and he was above the law.
Contrast that with Biden's reaction. Biden invited him in to help them find them from the very beginning and gave everything over and gave them full access. It was remarkably different than what Trump did in
Numerous
Mar-a-Lago.
people
Yeah.
have had issues over the years with classified documents, and we can say what we will about you should know, you should know, you should know. Okay, but when the government comes to you, and the record keepers come to you from the federal government and say, "Give us our stuff back," and you say, "No, it's mine," that's pretty much a de facto violation. And it seems a pretty simple case. So when these attorneys are talking about we need months and months and months, they know what their client did. They've got the video. They've got access to their witnesses, the other co-defendants. They know exactly what happened. And this is just a delay tactic because Trump and his team have made clear their goal is for him to not be criminally convicted before the election, hoping that he could then not be criminally convicted until he's president. And when he's president, he will he will order his attorney general to dismiss all these charges.
Isn't that obstruction of justice?
In any other way, yes, but we give the president certain immunities. And when he's sitting as president, he'll be immune from prosecution during the time, that 4-year period, assuming he lives to the end of his term. People forget how old he is and how unhealthy he is and his diet. And regardless of what his physician says about this is a man in great shape for his age, we can see that he could stand to lose a few.
Yeah. Let me ask you, let me go back to Cannon again. Smith drew Cannon by just bad luck, right? It just happened to be her turn to come up on this case in this particular.
We would hope so. Yeah. In a perfect world, yes.
Okay. So, but we're not implying that she's in communication with anybody. We're just implying, well, not implying, it's a fact that she's been a member of the Federalist Society. And from that, we're deducing that her behavior is consistent with other judges who are with that group. Is that accurate?
That's fair. And we don't have to say she's a member of the group. She's been associated with the group. And people associated with that group tend to have those same extreme views.
Yeah. I'm wondering, I see Nikki Haley and I hear others talking about that Trump should face trial for this. Obviously, she has a vested interest in seeing.
She has a vested interest in that.
But I'm also wondering now if he is convicted in the hush money case, which seems like a certainty. I mean, but juries can do whatever juries do. If he is convicted in that case, even though that was in the beginning, I remember a lot of us were like, oh, we should just throw that one out and concentrate on these. But that particular case would I think set a bar, saying, look, the president did something that required a grand jury and a trial and a conviction. Now we have to look at these others more seriously. If in fact Judge Cannon decides that not July 8th, but maybe August 8th, whatever, pick a date in August to have this trial, is it reasonable to think that could be concluded by the election?
Yeah, yes, it is. This isn't, I'm sure the defense would do everything they could to delay. But any decent trial judge knows how to handle delay tactics. This isn't the first case this judge or any judge has been on the bench for more than 6 months. They've seen delay tactics. One side always wants to delay. That's just the reality. And it's usually the defendant in both civil and criminal cases. So they know how to handle it. They know how to cut through it. It just doesn't seem to be happening in this case.
You know, what's crazy is that if you recall, in the weeks before the 2016 election, the Billy Bush bus episode happened, right? And everybody said, well, he's toast now. I mean, they're going to have to find somebody new this close to the election. This could happen near that frame time, right? I mean, if you're talking about August, September, October, a trial like this could take 60 days, right? Or no?
No. I mean, could it? Wow. I guess under some ways it could, but again, this isn't a real tough case.
So could Cannon punt it past the election?
She has absolute authority to do whatever she wants to do.
Wow.
Unless it's appealed up, and there's no way you can appeal up a judge that keeps punting the case. So yeah, the short answer, practical answer is yes.
Okay. And again,
she does seem to be headed that way. Remember, she asked for briefings on when are we going to set a schedule, and that was set for today, and it's just ignored, at least as much as we know from what we've read.
So could Democrats listening to this uncross their fingers and say that this may be a tactic that makes it look bad for her, but that she will actually get a date, set a date, and conduct a fair trial?
Well, I don't view it as Democrats. I view it as any citizen that wants transparency and fairness. Doesn't matter what political leaning you are.
Well, you're not talking about MAGA then,
Well,
because
no. MAGA's they're pretty deranged. They're pretty far out on the extreme.
well, there's millions of them, tens of millions of them, which is frightening and a whole nother thing. And with the Electoral College being what it is, they've seized the control of our presidential elections. I mean, the Republicans haven't had a president who won the popular vote in an election but once in 4 decades. Once.
They know that, and they know that. And let's be clear. All MAGA has done is showed us that we're failing as a society in teaching basic civics, and we don't have appropriate mental health care and counseling. That's what we've learned from MAGA.
Yeah.
These are people that are rallying around authoritarians because the authoritarian may hate the same group of people they do.
Okay. One last time, explain to our viewers why Trump can be tried and why this 60-day window doesn't apply.
Well, it was argued today that the 60-day rule doesn't apply because it only applies to charging people, indicting someone within 60 days of an election. And the U.S. attorney today, the special counsel, special counsel today argued that since Trump was already indicted, that doesn't apply. And I think, just to be clear here, I think everybody should have an interest in, is this person a crook, a criminal? And did this person incite insurrection? I mean, the obvious answer to me is yes, because I sat there and watched that on January 6th. I watched his speech. I watched his actions leading up to that.
Yeah, there's a Latin phrase for what Trump does so well, and I can't recall it right now. But in other words, he'll say, we have to march to the Capitol. We got to fight for what we want, but let's do it peacefully. And he'll throw that in at the end. And when you look at it on a piece of paper, you'll say, look, he said do it peacefully.
Well, there are a lot of people that have served prison time for fighting words,
right,
or for causing a riot, that also thought they were clever like that. And it just didn't pass the laugh test, the giggle test. And look, I sat there, as a lot of people did on January 6th, as hour by hour by hour rolled by. And I'm thinking to myself, there's a National Guard, there's how many military bases, plus the local police force. This shouldn't have lasted more than 15 minutes, if that. I mean, the minute people started marching up, enough force to quash that in a civil manner should have been deployed. It wasn't, because the commander-in-chief at that time, the president, loved what he was seeing by all accounts. He was really into it. So these cases, I don't want to make it sound easy. Every prosecution of a case by a criminal prosecutor or a civil plaintiff's lawyer, prosecuting cases is hard. It is under the best of circumstances. But we all watched this on national TV, and we all followed the various demands from the government to get their documents back, and how one person thumbed his nose and said, these are mine, 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 and then stored them in a bathroom of a resort or a club. Let me put this to you in this context. If I had written that story as fiction, either one of those as fiction, and I went and tried to peddle that as fiction, people would have told me that is too crazy. You're too far out there, and yet we've lived through it.
Well, I mean, Smith comes at the long end of a line of people who've had Trump in their crosshairs: Comey, Mueller, Garland, and now Jack Smith. What is Jack Smith thinking tonight?
I'm going to take exception to that. I don't think anybody had Trump in their crosshairs.
Well,
I don't think people care. It's his criminal conduct that has put him.
Okay, fair enough.
Crosshairs, but it's put him under scrutiny for being a criminal. And just looking at the facts neutrally, he's probably going to be convicted, and he should be convicted.
So what is Jack Smith thinking right now after today, do you think?
I think he's worried. Again, I don't understand how Jack Smith thinks. He's brilliant. He's very good at what he does. He's
Well,
not
if
the
you were in that position, if
one
you were in that position,
coming
that
at you.
attorney,
Well,
yeah,
I think you're worried. I think you're concerned that if the New York trial starts to take shape, and it looks like it could get a date, that thinking cynically, maybe Eileen Cannon then, Judge Cannon, declares her trial for that date. So the New York case won't be scheduled then. And then instead of holding the trial, bumps it down the road. And that's a very, very, very
wow.
cynical view.
But
But after the special master, I think that even reasonable people have to wonder why she does what she does. And remember, Trump is someone that says above everything else, I respect loyalty to me. He doesn't respect loyalty to the country. Remember, he even said of fallen soldiers or people that John McCain, I don't respect people that were captured.
yeah, suckers and losers. Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
he's suckers and losers. This
He
is a
said that
guy
to
that didn't
John
have the
Kelly,
courage to
whose son
serve.
had died serving our country. So
Yeah, but he didn't have the courage to when it was his turn.
But let me, you just said something though that I just want to, before we get out of here, I want to,
Sure.
you mentioned that Cannon, if she changed the date to the date in May, and then that was the day of the, you're talking about the sentencing or the jury.
No. I'm not talking about. I'm talking about. Well, let me, maybe I'm mixing my cases up, and I apologize. I said New York, but I meant Washington D.C.
Oh, okay.
Let's say the case in Washington D.C. It's my fault. The case in Washington D.C. It looks like they're going to pick a particular date. It looks like they're narrowed in on a time frame. The most cynical among us would say that perhaps Judge Cannon then would set her trial then immediately, and then when it got close to it, just kick that date. And as I was saying, Trump respects loyalty. And let's say that you're a federal judge, but you'd love to be in the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals or the U.S. Supreme Court, and you're on the side of Trump being reelected. Yeah, just there could be a little something to think about there.
Well, we learned a lot today, and I'm sure a lot of people are going to go do some reading on the Federalist Society and earlier Cannon decisions. And like you were talking before the show, you and I were talking about what it looks like, moving forward with this judge and trying to determine if she does something over the weekend. So, and that could happen as well. So
and I would encourage. I mean, we're at a very unique time in history, much like when Watergate happened, and there's been other circumstances. We can talk about the cynical view, and maybe we should when we're dealing with certain people. Yeah. But I would encourage everybody listening, stay to your morals, stay to your values, stay to your known truths. Because in the day, in our country, that has prevailed every time. Not without work, not without a fight. And sometimes the fight goes on and on. There are some losses along the way. But our country, reasonable people have prevailed every step of the way, despite people wanting to abuse the system for their own benefit.
I think what you're saying is also goes along with the spirit of the law, and that was intended by our founding fathers. Michael Carter, thank you so much. Trial attorney in Chicago. We appreciate you being here. We'll have obviously be talking a lot more on Really Legal here on the on Really American Media Network. I'm Chip Franklin. Until next time, Michael, thank you.
Thank you.